Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for giving us sort of an hour out of your afternoons for us to sort of demonstrate as Sage Intacct. I have got the beginning of a very short PowerPoint presentation. It's not death by PowerPoint on a Wednesday afternoon. It's not 9 slides, and I'm going to spend about a minute per slide. The reason is just to introduce myself and my colleague Jimmy, introductions to who we are at Vision33. So really what sort of allows us to speak about Sage Intacct today, that the right to do so, who we are as a partner, high-level overview of Sage Intacct, and then I want to get you over to my colleague Jimmy, who's going to drive us through Sage Intacct. But I will be reaching out to you all after today just to see what your thoughts were, where you are in your sort of journey, if it's something you're actively looking into, and discuss what next steps may look like. So in terms of introductions, my name is Rory. I'm a sales consultant with Vision33. My role is to work with prospective new customers and sort of understand the challenges that they may have with their current system, what that means for them, as a finance team, but also as an organization, and how Sage Intacct can address those challenges and also, help grow their organization or business. And then at the end of the journey with me, I then transition you over to our delivery team who would implement the software, of which Jimmy is a part of. So Jimmy is our Sage Intacct consultant and works here amongst our Sage Intacct delivery team. So Jimmy himself has been a certified Intacct consultant for a number of years. However, has also actually worked on your side of the fence in a finance team, as a management accountant. So is a very knowledgeable person and actually understands the day-to-day and financial application of systems in your world. And really who we are Vision33. We are a Intacct global partner for Sage. Although headquartered in Canada, we do have a UK entity or presence, of which I'm a part of, and all my colleagues that you would meet as part of your journey through Intacct, all based here in the UK. But we are very much a transformation sort of partner in the sense that for us, it's much more than just an implementation and then moving over to support. It is a partnership and a journey in its own right. And when you work with the consultants, again, like Jimmy, it's very much a consultative experience in the sense that although they will listen to your requirements and understand what it is that you need to get from the finance team, they will also apply their own knowledge of what they've seen work well and what they've seen haven't work well. And I think it's fair to say that there are times where our team will challenge you if they feel that you might be doing something that could be wayward, or if there's an easier way of doing something in the system. So it's all about getting the best out of the system, but also that transformational sort of process as well. And we do work with a number of different types of sectors. We are not a partner that sort of just is focused in one particular vertical. We've worked with all types of organizations, and I know from today we've got a number of different types of organizations and businesses joining us. So huge amounts of experience from the not-for-profit world, recruitment, general business, financial services. It's something that we see with our current clients and also prospective new clients when we work with them. So a lot of transferable skills and knowledge there as well when we sit down with you. Now, in terms of Sage Intacct, it is a best-of-breed finance solution. I always like to make it clear that there's a clear distinction and difference between a finance system and an ERP. ERPs are more for a business sort of transformational aspect where it's agnostic across pretty much every department, if you like, of your business, but you pay a lot more for it. You tend to get more than just a financial module. And when I speak with new prospective clients, it's not always a good fit because a lot of the time they just want a strong finance package that is really going to automate and enhance the accounting and financial processes within the finance team, and that leads into sort of better reporting. So Sage Intacct is very different in that respect. It is a cloud-based solution. It was built and born in the cloud. Why that's important? Well, it's important because you only need an internet connection and an internet-enabled device. So, a laptop, a smartphone, or a tablet. It's not a solution that started its life, on a server somewhere and has now recently made the jump to cloud. What you typically find in that world is that you still have to use something like Citrix or a remote desktop, which can be clunky. Not the case with Intacct. It's accessed, as I say, through a web browser of your choice. It's also a dimensional accounting system. Jimmy's going to walk us through what that means. Dimensions might be a brand new concept for you or something that you're already familiar with, but it's very much the backbone of Intacct and how you can get very granular reports out of the system. I think the key thing for you guys to take away, though, is that Intacct is a modular system. And what we mean by that is you only need to add on to your subscription what is necessary from day one, and that might be for the first year, perhaps two. So as part of today's demonstration, we do tend to go through the core financials, which is Intacct, if you like, and that's what everybody gets as standard. But we will be touching on, multi-entity and consolidations, although that is an additional module, but it is typically a common requirement that we see. But there is a heap of different modules that Intacct can provide. And again, as part of my role when I work with new clients, it's understanding what those might be and how they fit into how it's going to enhance your sort of day-to-day operations. I think the other key thing to take away from today, though, is Intacct is also what we refer to a micro-verticalized sort of solution. And what I mean by that is that there are a number of sectors that it works very well in. And what I mean by that is things like terminology, reporting, even bespoke type of modules have been catered for that particular vertical. So when we go to provision your environment, we will do so on the basis of the type of organization that you are. So for example, if you're a not-for-profit, you will be set up as a not-for-profit organization. So again, terminology, being SORP compliant, for example, things that would just sort of be standard as part of that environment. And likewise with some of the other sectors. So it's very different in that sense. Why that's important, though, is that we can implement Intacct in 3 months as opposed to 6 to 9 months. So there's a lot that you get out of the box with Sage Intacct, for example, 155 or plus reports, but you're not sort of shoehorned into working how Intacct wants you to work. You still have a full blueprinting and customized session, and you can tailor it to your own as well. So you can make Intacct work for yourselves and type of organization that you are. And Intacct, has been built with multi-entity in mind, and of course, whether that's domestic or global and multi-currency. But if you're with us today and you're only a single entity organization, that is absolutely fine. And Sage Intacct has been built with any type of organizational structure. So you might be a single entity, perhaps with aspirations to grow in the coming years, and Intacct will allow you to grow. It's not designed to hinder you. So growing from a single entity into a multi-entity organization can be done very easily with Sage Intacct. But if you are just a single entity, you have no desire to grow, again, absolutely fine in that sense too. And then lastly, we also have Saltbox, which is our own in-house integration platform. Why that's important, why I wanted to bring it into the webinar is that a very common requirement that we hear from all types of organizations is integration. So our Saltbox platform will allow us to plug any other business systems that you have into Sage Intacct, and the integrations can be sort of bilateral, so we can push data from Intacct into those systems. So, whether you're from the recruitment side of the world and you're using, a time and billing solution or a CRM, we actually have custom connectors in place already for the likes of, Bullhorn, RSM in time, CRMs, Salesforce, HubSpot, billing solutions. Really for us, it doesn't matter what you have, we can integrate with it. It's just understanding how can we access that data and what is it that you need to be pulled into Intacct, or what needs to go from Intacct back into your systems. So something I will discuss with you if that's a requirement that you have. There are other options, but Saltbox is a fully managed service that we provide from the integration side. And without further ado, Jimmy, I'm going to hand it over to you to take us through the demo.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, Rory. Okay, so we'll start off with dashboard in Sage Intacct. So this is an example dashboard in Sage Intacct. As you can see, I'm logged in via Chrome. As Rory mentioned, it is a cloud-based system, so you can log in via Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, and what have you. And then here we've got our entity selector. So again, as Rory mentioned, Sage Intacct is a multi-entity environment. So I've got a top level here, and then all the different entities I can log into and transact. For this demonstration, I'm going to be at the top level for this dashboard. So what is a dashboard? A dashboard essentially is a sort of center point for reporting. So the idea behind a dashboard is that a CFO or a CEO can log in straight away and sort of have this page as sort of a focal point for all the reports they need to see. So Sage Intacct comes with out-of-box dashboards, or we can go ahead and create sort of custom ones. So we've gone ahead and created this custom CFO one. So within the dashboard, we can sort of bring in different reports. So we've got like a company performance report here. We can have what we call reporting cards. So this one here, for example, is bringing in the total revenue for the company, and it's comparing it via prior month. You can have that compared versus budget or prior quarter, etc. Another thing to note is that this dashboard here, it's a consolidated dashboard. So we can have a dashboard for each of our entities or a consolidated one, which is what this one is, and it's consolidating all our data into US dollars. A really nice thing about the dashboard is that it's fully drillable. So as an example, let's take this 315,655 here. I can simply click onto this, and that's going to take me straight to the report where that's found. And then I can drill further into my direct labor cost report, all the way sort of into the invoice or the journal, wherever that originating transaction is. So every figure on your dashboard is completely drillable, which is really nice because if you see something that doesn't quite look right, or you want to look further into a figure, it's really easy to just click in there and find out what the originating transaction is. Cool. At the top here, you can see it's a role-based CFO dashboard. So we're able to restrict these dashboards down. So if you only want certain users to see certain dashboards, you can configure that as you wish. Down here, we've got some other reports. We've got sort of revenue by location and revenue, this one over here, operating expense by department. So this is where the dimensions come into Sage Intacct. So essentially what the dimensions are in Sage Intacct, they're different pots we can put your transactions into when we're transacting. So location is an example of one here. And also we've got departments, different departments here. But these can be pretty much exactly whatever you want to be in Sage Intacct. For example, I know a lot of not-for-profits use funds, so we can set up different funds as departments. If you're service-based, you might want to be using this department more, or we've got different classes and things like that. So these are fully customizable and sort of dictated by whatever you want to see in the system. Benefit of having them is, it's an extra layer of reporting. So on this specific pie chart, if I click into my admin expenses, I'm able to see a report that's specifically related to the operating expenses for that department. So yeah, you get that extra layer of granularity in the system. Cool. Another benefit of your dashboards are they're fully live in the system, which means that, if a CEO or CFO is in here looking at a dashboard and someone goes and enters a transaction in the system, it's going to update in real time. There's no sort of like month-end close or anything like that. It is all real-time data that'll be shown in this dashboard. Cool. What I'll do is I've got another dashboard here. So as I've mentioned, these are basically fully customizable. So this is one we've set up that an AR user might set as their homepage, or they might use on a regular basis. So as you can see, we've got everything that's sort of related to AR. So we've got your accounts receivable balance, disputed amounts. We've got sort of ledgers down here, specific invoices and things like that. Again, fully drillable. Something that's really nice, on the left-hand side, we've got this custom navigation pane. So this, if it was set as a homepage for a user, it'd make it really easy for them to sort of access all the parts of the system that they'd need to access. So for example, if I was to go create a sales order here, this screen would pop up and I can go and directly add a sales order into the system. So yeah, it makes navigating the system really easy. Up at the top here, we've got a couple of different filters. So this one filtered it down by a UK entity, but again, you can sort of set different filters and see whatever departments or locations and dates you want to see on your dashboard. We can set those as default and things like that as well. Cool. So I'll hop back into sort of dimensions and what they are and go into them a little bit more. So if I go to my company here and cross-company dimensions, so as I mentioned, these dimensions can be whatever you want. A typical one we'll see is departments. So if I hop into here, you can see in this demo system that I'm operating on, once it loads, let me just hop out of this list. You've got different sort of departments set up. So we've got sales, services, admin, marketing, and we can set up different rules in here as well. We can have different departments roll into each other and things like that. So what I'll show you is how that looks when we're actually creating a transaction in the system. So if I go to my accounts receivable module here and go to an AR sales invoice and go to add an AR sales invoice, what I'll do is I'll switch to my UK entity for this, just because we've got some rules set at top level. Cool. Again, so if we go to my AR sales invoices and add an AR sales invoice, so this is typically what sort of an entry screen looks like in Sage Intacct. So it's not too different to what an AP entry would look like or a journal entry. So we've got all this standard data we can see at the top here. I'm going to add my customer I'm just going to select Hamza Stationery Shop. There's loads of free text fields and things like that you can utilize as you wish. Add some terms in. Cool. Here you can see we can add attachments into the system. So that's really easy. It's just this little attachment button, and then it's a drag and drop or a simple file upload. So you can add attachments against pretty much any record in the system. Down here is where we set the currency values. So if it was, for example, a US invoice, We'd select it here, and it's going to automatically pull an exchange rate from, I believe it's awanda.com, which is a daily rate. So pretty much every currency in the world, I've not got them all activated on the system. I know that's not every currency, but you can pretty much get any currency you want to appear on this list and a live rate pulled. There's also the option to use a custom rate. So you can use, set rate for a week, a month that's just dictated by whatever you choose. So for the purpose of this one, I'm just going to leave it nice and easy and leave it as a sterling one. So this is the entries table at the bottom where we'd sort of add and code the invoice. So typically, in a standard accounting system, you'd only really be coding against the GL account, and then you'd put your transaction amount and your tax in. Whereas in this specific instance, we've got different departments that are being used within the system. So if I go ahead and just choose a random GL code, let's just do other expense for the purpose of this one. Put £1,200. So the fund is a dimension that we can choose. So I can pick one of these funds. What I'll do in this case is just pick a specific department. I'll put this against sales. We can also have things like projects and locations as well, which is automatically coded against our entity up here. Cool. And then that's it. That's just a case of posting the invoice. Yeah, and that'll then feed through to our report. So I guess the main benefit of using these dimensions is the reporting capabilities. So I'll hop to our report center and I can just show you where that invoice has gone. I'll show briefly as well on this call where you can go in and build sort of any sort of financial or custom report that you want. So if I hop into the report center, so we've got some different profit and losses down here that we can run. So as an example, we've got profit and loss by location and profit and loss. I believe we've got one by department somewhere. Yeah, profit and loss by department. And if I just go ahead and run this report, I can just show you what the reporting on dimension looks like in the system. We get this filter screen first of all, so we can sort of filter down by department or location, or set the dates and things like that. We can use different reporting books as well. But if I just go ahead and just run a standard report here, cool. So you can see on this profit and loss by department report, you can see it's set out a little bit different to a standard financial report. We've got all our departments along the top, and then sort of our GL codes down the side. So yeah, we can create these sort of reports for any dimension that you wish to use in the system. The benefit of these reports as well is they're fully drillable again. So it's just literally a case of, selecting any number in blue. That's going to take you to that direct GL report. And then from there, I can drill further and further until I'm directly into the journal or the AP invoice where this originated from. So yeah, really easy to find sort of the information that you're after with these reports. Just while I was in there, I did actually just miss this, but I will show you a nice feature that we have in the accounts receivable module when we're adding an AR sales invoice. Apologies, I did miss this out of my demonstration there, but I'll just go back and show it. So we have something called revenue recognition, which is a really nice, useful feature of Sage Intacct. So I'll just quickly go in and add, let me go back to my entity level and add an AR sales invoice. Let me just quickly fill in the details. Just select a random GL account. Let's go for rent on this one. Put the transaction amount of 1,200, and we won't put code against the department. With departments, things like that as well, we can set up some rules that say, that a department is always required on a transaction or a fund is always required and things like that. But for this demo system, we've not got anything like that set up. So if we go into the show details here, what we can do is we can set a revenue recognition template against the invoice, which basically means that if we're issuing an invoice to a customer that we want to split and we want to sort of accrue, the system's going to deal with that for us automatically using this revenue recognition. So I know normally that's done in Excel or something like that and sort of manual journals within the system, but we're sort of able to accrue and account for all that really easily within Sage Intacct. So all I've done is come into my line detail. I'm going to select the revenue recognition template. So we've got a few already set up, but these can be pretty much whatever you want. On this one, we've got a straight line for 12 months set up. And all we have to do is select the start date of the recognition. So I'm just going to go from the 1st of this month and then post. Cool. So while that posts, I'll just hop back in and show you what that's done. So this is the invoice I've just posted. If you go and view this, down at the bottom here, if I go to my show details again and view the schedule, Cool. You can see this is automatically sort of posted those 12 months out from the 31st of Jan 26 across the whole year. So that's a massive time saver. We have the same module. It's called prepaid expense amortization. We have the same sort of functionality as an add-on module for accounts payable as well. Yeah, so we see that save a lot of time for our clients. So I'll hop back into the reports center. Okay, so as I was saying, Sage Intacct comes with 100 different reports out of the box, and then there's really easy functionality to go in and edit a report, add columns in it and things like that. I'll just demonstrate that quickly on one of these reports. For example, this profit and loss summary report. So I'll just show you what this looks like as a standard. So cool. We've got our profit and loss standard report as you'd expect to see it, with our month ending, quarter ending, and year ending values. As an example, if I wanted to add some budgeted data into this report, it's really easy to do. I'll just go to my, I forget what that one's called, profit and loss summary. If I find my profit and loss summary and go to more actions and edit. Okay, let me edit a different one here. P&L month on month. Let me edit this. Yeah, we'll just do this one. It's because I'm at the entity level. But yeah, this is what the report writer looks like. It's really easy to use. So the row section is where we can see our GL accounts that are used. So it's dead easy to come in here and add extra GL accounts or remove them or do what we need to do in here. The thing that I want to show on here is the columns. So it's dead easy. We can see this is our sort of column that's showing the account number and name. This is where it's showing the actual data. And all I've got to do is add a column to the right. Cool. And I can come in here and basically say, right, my column type is going to be a computation or a variance on the budget or my actual budget values. You can see there's loads of different options here that we can use. We can like have an offset. We can say this is 2 months prior budget and things like that. And then we can expand this out as well. We can say, right, we want to show the budget for the next 6 months or 7 months or show the actuals for 7 months and things like that. So it's really, really customizable. I know that's a very brief overview of the reporting, but if you did come along and use Sage Intacct, we'd have some really in-depth sessions on reporting and how it works and how to build your own reports as part of the process. Cool. Other things you can do with the reports that are really helpful. If I come into my more actions over here, we can process and store. And what I want to show here is an edit schedule. So if I edit schedule on this, basically what this is that we can schedule reports or groups of reports to be automatically sent or stored out of the system, which is really useful if you're sending like weekly or monthly reporting packs out to a specific group of people. So we can filter them down as well. So we can say, okay, we want, a specific reporting group. We want these out, a specific reporting group that consists of a P&L and a balance sheet, but only for a specific department to be sent out to specific users. We can configure all that in here. So if I go here, say to email, send it to myself. I won't tap the whole thing in. But then, yeah, we can add a subject and a message in here. And we can say, okay, we're going to start this on the 1st of Jan and have it repeat every month or every week for the next year, for example, things like that. So it takes a lot of the manual work out of sending sort of reporting packs and things out of the system and makes that whole process very easy. Yeah, we can configure this to send in like PDF and Excel, and there's some flexibility on that as well. Cool. What I'll do is next I'll hop into purchasing and just show an example of sort of purchasing workflow. So within Sage Intacct, purchasing has its own module, but it is directly linked to the accounts payable module. So you'll have a shared list of suppliers and invoices and things like that between the two. If I go to my setup here and go to my transaction definitions, I'm just going to go display workflows. This is our demo system, so there's a lot on there, and this might be a little bit difficult to fully comprehend, but we can basically set up a workflow for our purchasing transactions, and the logic's the same if we're going to use order entry as well. So what this is basically saying is from our purchase requisition, we've got a couple of different options. We can convert it to a purchase order, a blanket PO. So I think the one I'm going to be showing is purchase requisition straight to a purchase order to a fulfillment, then a vendor invoice. So these workflows, they can be sort of as detailed and comprehensive as you want, or they can be really simple. Some customers, they'll literally just use a PO to a purchase invoice, and that's the whole workflow. Whereas this one, as you can see, there's loads of different routes we can go down in terms of what we can convert and into what. These transaction definitions, they're very customizable as well. So we can set sort of different permissions, different document templates, which is basically how the purchase order looks, different numbering sequences. Yeah, it's very customizable unit. So what I'll do is I'll hop into add a purchase order or just demonstrate one. So if I go to my purchase orders here, I'll take this one as an example, this one that's already been added, Hamza's new laptop. So if we go and view this or edit it maybe, this is what sort of a standard purchase order looks like within the system. So as you can see, it's all sort of very standard details. You can see it's been converted from a purchase requisition. So if I click here, that's going to take me to the originating document that it was created from. So it started as a purchase requisition. Someone's come in and converted it to a purchase order. And as you can see, it's all very standard information here. We've got an attachment. So again, we can add any sort of attachment that we want to a purchasing transaction. And then down here, we've got our entries table. So we can see we've got the item and it's been coded to specific departments and locations. Yeah, and that's the price. So the benefit of using the workflow here is that from this purchase order, what I can do is, I can't actually show it on this one because it's already been converted, but I can go ahead and convert this purchase order into the next stage of the workflow. And what it does is it basically keeps, let me see if we can find it on this next stage. Okay, so I can see it here, it's been converted to the final stage, which is the invoice. But the benefit of converting it is it's going to keep all the data, all the information from one step of the workflow to the next. So there's no sort of re-entry of data and things like that. Another thing we can do is we can set up some approvals against each step of the workflow. So, and the approvals within Sage Intacct, they're really versatile. So we could have an approval matrix set on the purchase order that's completely different to the purchase invoice. And they can look very customizable. They can be pretty much whatever you want. We can say, you know, if the invoice is above or the purchase order is above a certain amount, it needs to go to this approver. If there's a certain transaction or a certain department coded against the purchase order, it needs to go to this approver. They're really versatile, and we can have different rules per transaction definition. Let me just see if I can show you this a little bit better. Okay, cool. So you can see here, I'm again at the purchase order. We can see the approval history within the history tab. And we can see here, this is a very basic one, but we can see this is being set to a user type approval, which means a certain user needs to approve the purchase order. And we can see that Emma has been set as the approver and that Hamza has gone in and approved this one. So we have the full audit trail behind it as well. But again, very customizable. You can sort of set what you want, yeah, with these approval matrices. Yeah, really customizable. Cool. What I'll do next is I'll hop into the cash management module. And so again, cash management's sits in its own sort of module within Sage Intacct. And here's where sort of all our credit cards and bank accounts are stored. The first thing to show, I think, is our current accounts. If I go to view on one of these. Cool. And what we can do within each bank account is we can link these up directly to your bank as a live feed. So that means each day, Intacct will automatically import your bank transaction from the previous day and basically feed that directly into your bank rec. So it's possible with most banks to be able to get this link set up. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I go into my bank rec as an example, so if I go to reconciliation, then bank, let me just select in fact, let me go back to my top level just because it's been configured for bank recs. Cool, let me select my GBP. So yeah, your standard information that you'd enter in a bank rec here. So I'm selecting the bank account, sort of my balance dates and my ending balance. I'll just leave it at 0 for now. I won't actually reconcile this one. Okay, this bank doesn't have one set up. Let me try and find one that's got a feed set up. Give me 1 second. Maybe this first one does. Okay, cool. So this demo bank has a feed set up, which we can tell by this little bank tab here. So that's going to automatically be showing all the transactions that are pulled through from the bank for the prior day or prior period. So this is what bank rec looks like. It's yeah, pretty standard stuff. I'd say there's nothing that you've probably not seen before on a bank rec. Up at the top here, we've got a load of different financial data. So you've got like our amount of unmatched transactions, unmatched amount, things like that. And then here we've got status unmatched. This is showing all the transactions that have not been matched. The nice thing about Intacct is that you can reconcile from either the bank side. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see this, the full screen. You can reconcile from either the Intacct side or the bank side. So it's dead easy. From the Intacct side, all you have to do is select your transaction that you want to match up and then press match. That's going to take you over to the bank side. And then it's literally just a case of finding that transaction within your list, ticking it and matching it. Because it's a demo system, nothing's quite matching up for me. So just have to take my word for it. But yeah, we can then go match and go next. And that's going to take us to the next transaction, or we can just match it. The nice thing about Intacct is you can do that from either side. So if I'm on the bank side, I still have that same match tab, which is just going to do the reverse of what I've just shown. But a really nice feature is this action button. So from here, we can create the transaction directly from the bank. So whether that's a journal entry or a funds transfer or whatever it might be, we can go ahead and create that directly from the bank. I know with other accounting systems, you sort of have to save the rec, go out, create your transaction, come back in. But yeah, there's no need for that in this. You can do it all from the one screen. Cool. Yeah, pretty standard stuff for the bank rec, I'd say. We can set like different filters and things like that on it. And yeah, the other thing I want to show is what we call matching and creation rules within the banks. So what these are is we can set up rules that say if a transaction is fed through on the bank feed, that if the date matches and the amount matches a transaction in Intacct and the description sort of either includes a certain reference or is a certain reference, we can get them to automatically match in Sage Intacct. So if I go, we create them as part of a rule set. So if we go to my rule sets here, let me just turn off this list. Cool. So I've got an example rule set here. So if I go to view on this one, we've got a couple of different rules set up here, but this simple one is the one I want to show. And we can get like as in-depth as you want on these, but it's as simple as putting down here, these are my matching conditions. If the posting date matches the posting date on Intacct, the amount in the bank matches the amount on Intacct, and if the document number is equal to the document number. That's a very basic rule. We can set up sort of more advanced ones that say if it contains a certain reference and things like that. But yeah, dead simple. And the idea of that is, you know, hypothetically, if you had all your transactions set up with these sort of rules and they were all matching the bank, then all you have to do is come into your bank rec and press reconcile. Or obviously check over your transactions and press reconcile. I think it might be impossible to get all of them matching up, but yeah, it's supposed to take out a lot of the legwork, which is a really nice feature of Intacct. There's also something called a creation rule as well, which follows similar logic. It basically says, you know, you can create rules that say if the transaction amount and details and date all match, then to actually create a transaction on the back of it, create a journal or something like that and post it as well. So there's loads of flexibility in there, and obviously, yeah, would help you create those as part of the build process. Cool. So the last thing I'll show is sort of consolidation within Sage Intacct. So as I mentioned, my system that I'm operating out of now, it's a multi-entity system. We've got loads of different entities here, and they're all transacting in different currencies. Sage Intacct has a consolidation module that'll sort of consolidate all these modules or all these entities or a selection of these entities together really easily. So if I hop into consolidation, which I've just lost again, this one here, in my setup here, I'll just show you quickly. So as you can see here, I've got a few different consolidation books set up. You know, we can consolidate into any currency. So I've got some that are set up against GBP, some against USD. As an example on this one, I'll just show you. So this one's consolidating all the entities we have. We've selected a GL account for the inter-entity postings for net income and net assets. And we've said we're going to use the ending spot rate for our balance sheet accounts. All of this is customizable, and a weighted average rate for our income statement accounts. Cool. So in this tab here, we've selected all the entities to consolidate. So I've just gone ahead and selected all the entities, but I can pick and choose which ones I want to bring into one book. And then I've also said I want to consolidate all my dimensions as well. Again, you can pick and choose those. Probably the one thing to show is these elimination accounts. So what we've done on this one is we've enabled inter-entity auto elimination. So that's going to automatically sort of take out any intercompany balances between accounts. It's going to read those GL accounts and just sort of automatically eliminate them, which is, again, really, really big benefit of Intacct. yeah, I've done that before in Excel, and it's not a nice task. So literally click of the button and that's done for you. In here, we can go ahead and add any other GL accounts we want as well to eliminate. So, there's probably going to be some foreign exchange in here or sort of share capital accounts and things like that. But yeah, we can set up as many of these books as you want into any currency. It's really flexible again, really flexible module. Let me just hop back in there. Okay, so we've got our run consolidation here, run consolidation button. So I'll just quickly step onto this. Cool. So this is how you actually run the consolidation. It's going to be hard to show for this one because they've already been done for the period I'm in. But here you just go ahead and select your consolidation book, wherever it might be. Let me try to find one that's not been done. Okay, cool. So you go ahead, select your consolidation book, and just select the month you want to consolidate. Tick here, then you've got a couple of options. You can consolidate or you can consolidate with options. So if you consolidate with options, all that's going to do is just let you manually enter and adjust the exchange rates that it's being consolidated in. Otherwise, it's just going to pull the intact rates for that period from oanda.com. For this one, all I'm going to do is just press consolidate. I'm going to put in my email address, and that's going to notify me sort of when the consolidation is complete. And all I have to do is press OK. So that's just going to run in the background. It depends on the size of your system, but normally within about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the consolidation is done. And then you can move on to the next period and consolidate that. So I'll show you how that looks in reporting. It's dead easy again. So if I come to my reports, come to my report center. Cool. And then if I go to run one of my reports, I'll just pick a random one here, my balance sheet. Up at the top here, I've got my reporting method. So it's going to default to my accrual, which is just my standard reporting. But here I can basically go in and select a specific reporting book and run that report. It's going to look the same, but it's going to have our consolidated figures. These are all consolidated figures in GBP. So as you can see, the consolidating in Intacct is really easy. Once those books are set up, it's literally a press of a button and all your reports are consolidated for a period. Cool. I think that pretty much covers everything from my side. If I can hand back over to Rory and see if there's...
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much for taking us through. We did get some questions, but I just thought it was best to leave them to the end. So I'll just start from the top. Can you clarify what the top level actually means?
So basically, you can't transact against the top level. It's basically like a holding cell for all your companies. So if I was to pick an entity and go and transact against an entity, all my modules and things like that would look the same within Sage Intacct. So if I was to come into my UK company, cool. So I'm in my UK company now, my UK entity. As you can see, I've got all the standard modules down the side, the same as I'm at my top level. One of the biggest differences is when I go to transact, for example, if I'm adding an AP invoice, down at my locations field here, I'm going to be restricted to locations or to transacting directly against this location. And it's the same like if I was reporting inside this entity, I'd only be able to see reports that are relevant to this UK entity. And it's the same for all my entities. Whereas if I'm at the top level, I can sort of see transactional data across all my companies in one spot. So I can also transact from the top level. So if I was adding an AP invoice, again, I can also transact and add an AP invoice. But if I go to my location tab here, as you can see, my screen's not doing an amazing job of showing this. Well, you might have to take my word for it, but I can transact against any location here, whether it's my USA entity, my UK entity, or any the locations that fall underneath it. So I guess in essence, the top level is just a holding cell for all your companies, all your data. The benefit of this is you can sort of restrict users down to only be able to transact within a certain entity or a certain group of entities as well, which is nice to have.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jimmy. And then another question that follows on from that, I realize. So how does the consolidation work with calculating things like goodwill?
Can I shoot that one over to Hamza if is there?
Yeah, we might have to take that one offline, Rory. So if you want to touch base offline afterwards, we can definitely pick that one up. We might need more info on it.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, so leave that with us. Well, as I say, I'm going to be in touch anyway off the back of this webinar. And typically next steps, if this is something that you are looking into actively, we'll have sort of a call just to sort of understand, requirements for the system. And the idea in most cases, a lot of the people who join us on these webinars do like to then have a more sort of focused demo with one of our consultants, so whether that's Jimmy or Hamza, who just a moment ago said something. And this is something where, once we've understood what it is that you're referring to in the requirement, we can actually sort of walk you through that. I think the reason being is that we've barely even scratched the surface with what Intacct can do, on this webinar, given that it's really only an hour. And, we really want to kind of get into the detail of what it is that you're after. We'll sort of leave it there for now. Again, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. Like I say, it could be something that you're just sort of researching at the moment. It might be a more immediate priority for you. Your organization and your team are actively looking into a new finance system. And as I say, if that is the case, it's good for us to have a sort of what I like to call a discovery call. Just make sure Intacct is a good fit. And then we'll go from there. And in some cases, that might mean a more tailored demonstration, or you've seen enough in this webinar to kind of proceed further. But, that's why I want to reach out to you tomorrow anyway. So with that in mind, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I'll be in touch. And until then, hopefully speak to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.